February 3rd, 1943, a converted luxury cruise ship named the Dorchester was en route to Greenland with some 900 people on board. Among the 900 soldiers, civilian employees, and support personnel were the 4 immortal chaplains. Just 150 miles from their destination, the Dorchester was struck by a torpedo fired from a German U-boat that nearly cut the vessel in half. In less than 30 minutes, the ship would be completely lost and nearly 700 men would lose their lives. In the midst of unimaginable chaos and horror, the 4 chaplains did their best to maintain their composure while escorting as many soldiers as possible to safety. The chaplains handed out life vests until there were no more to be handed out. It was at this moment that they did the unthinkable. Without hesitation, each of the chaplains removed their own life vest and strapped them onto 4 young men who were waiting in line. Just moments later, the ship sank into the raging sea. From a distance, survivors recount seeing and hearing the 4 chaplains with arms and hands locked together, praying aloud and singing hymns, while the vessel and all those who were left on it were swallowed up by the sea. The bravery and unselfish sacrifice of these 4 men will forever be honored by all those who know their story, and their mission of love and compassion will continue to be practiced by any who accept the call to serve God and country as an Army chaplain. As a former soldier myself, I understand how great the need is to have a chaplain close by for the spiritual needs of the soldiers. Having learned from the wise counsel of a chaplain in the past and my desire to one day become an Army chaplain myself, I present to you information about this vital element of the U.S. Army. The Army chaplain plays an important role in the well-being of the Army unit. From the earliest days of the chaplaincy to the modern times, it has been the chaplain who provides the spiritual guidance for the men and women who serve our country. In a time when our nation has a fighting presence in various places around the world, the Army chaplain fills a significant role as a spiritual leader of the troops. In our discussion of the Army chaplain, we will look at the history of the position, the qualifications of becoming a chaplain, and the duties of the chaplain in today's Army. The history of the Army chaplain dates back as far as the history of warfare itself. The chaplain as we know it today was established by the Second Continental Congress in 1775. And since the Revolutionary War, the clergy have served in over 270 major wars and combat engagements, according to the Army History Center. What began with 15 chaplains serving 23 regiments in 1775 has grown to more than 2,900 chaplains serving the Army and representing more than 130 different religious organizations. However, this number is still small in comparison to the estimated 561,000 people who currently serve in the U.S. Army, as reported in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. According to these numbers, we can see that the need is great to have more men and women follow that calling to serve in the armed forces. It is crucial that we have these spiritual leaders in place to carry out the responsibilities that only a chaplain could fulfill. The Army chaplaincy is a religiously diverse population, reflecting the diversity of the Army itself. Yet each chaplain ministers according to the tenets of his or her distinctive faith community. They assist with chapel-based care at their assigned posts, perform religious ceremonies, rituals, and rites in accordance with their respective faiths. They oversee a full program of religious ministries, including workshops, counseling sessions, religious education, and special events. Unlike most officers in the Army, a chaplain begins serving as a staff officer immediately. As a member of the Commander's Special Staff, the chaplain is responsible for providing advice in matters pertaining to religion, morals, and the morale. Since the chaplains carry such an enormous responsibility, ranging from the chapel services to individual counseling, it is crucial that the qualifications for appointment as well as the training is sufficient to prepare a person for such a grand task. The path to becoming an Army chaplain is a stringent process indeed. It entails more education and job-specific training than most occupations in the military. According to the GoArmy.com website, a person will need to be a U.S. citizen, pass security and fitness requirements, as well as age, education, and certain ministry experience criteria. An ecclesiastical endorsement from your faith group is required. This endorsement would certify a person to be qualified spiritually, morally, intellectually and emotionally to serve as a chaplain in the Army, and sensitive to religious pluralism, able to provide for the free exercise of religion by all military personnel, their family members, and civilians who work for the Army. Educationally, you must possess a bachelor's degree of not less than 120 semester hours, and possess a graduate degree in theological or religious studies. The training offered to chaplains is different in many ways to that of other members of the military. Instead of completing basic combat training, a chaplain will attend the Chaplain Basic Officer Leadership Course. This 12-week program, taught at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, provides an introduction to the non-combatant Common Core skills such as map reading and land navigation, Army riding, and chaplaincy-specific training. Now, given the history of this country as well as that of the rest of the world, it is safe to assume that there will always be some type of warfare being carried out in some part of the world. And as we have discussed before, if there is a military force, then there is a need for men and women who are willing to provide the spiritual guidance necessary for the well-being of our troops. In closing, let me leave you with this thought. On that cold February night, 1943, 4 men answered that call to serve. They willingly took up their cross and gave the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of others. That night, the Reverend George Fox, a Methodist preacher, and Father John Washington, a Roman Catholic priest, a Jewish rabbi named Alexander Good, and the Reverend Clark Poling from the Dutch Reformed Church, in spite of their religious differences, joined hands and hearts together as they showed the world how strong the bond was that they believed had placed them together. That bond was the love that they shared for their fellow man, as well as their commitment to God, their Father. It is this love that drives men to do great things today. It is my prayer that you too will follow your calling and fulfill that purpose that God has placed on your lives.